From Screen to Shelf.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another From Screen to Shelf podcast episode. I am Chase. This is Will. We are an army of two today. And today we have something I want to give a little bit of an advisory warning for. As you can see for our video listeners, we are going to be talking about some of the most disturbing or most fucked up, as I am assuming the title might be, fucked up movies that we have seen before. So content warning, we will get a little bit uncomfortable because things that are fucked up and disturbing tend to make us a little bit uncomfortable. So, we might preface a little bit, but as we go through these, I would highly recommend at least stopping and Googling the title. If you see if it might get you a little bit uncomfortable or anything like that, because some of these are very uncomfortable movies that we will be talking about. But that is what makes some of these movies near and dear to us, because when movies take chances like this, they can either pay off or not pay off, depending on the ones that we have on our list. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. And we're not going to go for really low-hanging fruit like Serbian film. That's just made to piss you off and make you uncomfortable. So we're not going to be going for that. At least on my end, I'm going to be going for things that I like or things that made me feel a certain type of way. So I'm curious because Will and I talked a little bit. I'm venturing a lot more down that rabbit hole, and I've seen a lot in that category and in that vein, but definitely Will has a huge leg up. Seeing things that would fit this category would be like Irreversible and Martyrs, or some things that came up as I was talking about this, movies that I wanted to get to. So I am very curious to hear Will's very first pick. Will, what is your first title?
Well, my first pick will be, I guess, the first disturbing movie that I think I saw once I was old enough to kind of understand what it was, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to see it as a kid. You know, you watch horror movies as a kid, like we've talked about on this channel a lot with some of our other videos. I've talked about that with like Halloween, and we talked about it with the Exorcist episode, one of our first episodes. We talked about how we were introduced to it. Some of us were exposed to horror movies at a young age, and it's interesting because, like, the horror movies, when you watch them as a kid, they scare you, or they freak you out, or certain things about them, certain characters, whether it's like the killer or whatever the case may be, the monster, whatever you want to put it, however you want to put it. You get scared by that stuff when you're younger. And then when you get older, not that those things aren't scary, they just, the definition of what's scary about those films to you changes as you get older, but as you get older and you digest, more movies, and you develop a taste for the type of cinema that you're into, there's just movies out there that are meant to make you think and make you kind of question, where you are, morally as a person. And yeah, man, there's just some stuff that's out there that is just, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch. And these movies, I think, and I think you'll agree, I don't want to speak for you, but as far as the movies that I've picked, as disturbing as some of the scenes in them are, or certain aspects of them are, they are still very well directed. I think they're, in terms of the story and the messaging, I think they're well written. I think the character development is still there with a lot of these movies. So, like you kind of mentioned, a Serbian film, like, I've seen a Serbian film. It made me want to fucking just not exist. Like movies like that where it's like, okay, let's just see how much
far we can go,
fucked up shit we can put in a movie just for the sake of saying, look what we did, and look at this is gross, which it very well is. But, some of these other movies, they are very disturbing, but I think they have a little more to offer in terms of, subtext with the themes that they're touching on and the stories that they're trying to tell. There's just a little more to them, right? There's more that you can take away from, right?
Yeah.
And once you can get past the shocking aspects of them, uh, there's quite a bit going on with them that you can play around with. But the
Yeah.
first movie is actually going to be Irreversible for me.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Because that's one of the first ones that I think I heard of when I was at the age, discovering different types of cinema, and especially getting into, I guess we could say, different directors and like kind of learning about their personalities. Um, and we've heard about these directors that tend to be a little more, boundary pushing, extreme in the types of movies that they make. The Lars von Triers of the world. And one of those other directors is Gaspar Noé. Uh, and I saw Irreversible when I was probably, I want to say it was in high school.
Yeah.
And it really bothered me, and the other thing was I still am, and I was before at the time. I'm a big fan of Monica Bellucci. I think she's a good, incredibly talented actress. She's somebody that's been around forever. She's got a very recognizable face.
Yeah.
Like I love her in the James Bond movie, with Daniel Craig, that she did. It just she was in one of the Matrix sequels. It's like she's been around,
Yeah.
she's done a lot of big mainstream movies that she starred in, and she's also done a lot more, intimate, smaller projects, which is great. Um and shout out to Monica Bellucci, by the way, because there's a movie that she did that I really liked, fell in love with, called Milena. Like, I think it was like the late 90s, early 2000s. Fantastic movie. So shout out to her if you're looking for a good Monica Bellucci movie. Check out Milena before we get started on Irreversible. But I think what bothered me so much about Irreversible was the fact that Monica Bellucci was in it and what her character had to endure, which is a sexual assault, which is a very obviously still a controversial topic. It's something that we deal with even today in society. Uh, just I don't know, just an awful thing, that makes you just hate humanity, for the kind of shit that people do to one another. But I mean, sexual assault is one of those things where, for a lot of people, that hits close to home. I personally, I know one person that has dealt with a sexual assault, and to this day, they're still dealing with the trauma from that, and it's a hard thing to grapple with, you know.
Yeah.
And Irreversible features a scene involving a sexual assault on Monica Bellucci's character, um, and it's really brutal. It's really hard to watch. And in fact, I don't know exactly what the time limit is or what the length of time that scene, how long that scene is, I should say, but I think it's somewhere around like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
8 minutes. So, and that's the thing that I think is so shocking about it, because the rest of the movie, let me just give you guys a quick, I guess, rundown on the, I guess we could say, the plot. Um, it's pretty much centers around these three people who are like going out, they're partying, they're going to clubs. Monica Bellucci being one of them. Vincent Cassel, plays one of the other characters, and I forget his name in the movie. It's been a little while since I've seen it. And then there's a third character, and two of them are dating. I think it's Vincent Castle's character is dating Monica Bellucci's character, and there's this other guy that they're hanging out with who's a friend. I think he's either her friend or her brother or something like that. But it pretty much centers around them and their kind of time together, partying, experiencing like nightlife together. But what's shocking about the movie is that particular scene, in which again, I don't know how long it is, but it's like an 8 minute or so scene. It's very long. Um, this was released in France. It did compete for, I think, an award at the Cannes Film Festival in the year it was released, either 2001 or 2002. Back in the day when it came out. Um, as far as like the audience reception, pretty mixed, pretty controversial for the time. And we got to remember, I mean, by today's standards, this might not be as controversial as it once was. I mean, obviously,
Right.
we've been exposed to much more extremism in film, especially from like the French, the French extremism or French extreme films, that whole wave. We've gotten quite a few since Irreversible that have really kind of given that some competition in terms of you know testing the patience of film goers, moviegoers, in terms of how much they're willing to take, right? Um, but a lot of the criticism towards the movie is pretty much because of that portrayal of the sexual assault and just how violent it is. And I don't want to like try to sell this to anybody because that's not what I'm here to do. But I mean, I am gonna just be honest about my interpretation of it. It is graphic. And it's very unsettling, it's one of those things when I watched the movie, I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe that this is happening. Like, why am I watching this? That's the thing. You're like, why am I
Yeah.
watching this?
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies that really makes you think and question a lot of things, psychologically. It plays on you in ways that really make you kind of look at that kind of stuff and reevaluate who you are as a person and where you stand when it comes to these kind of things. And I think the movie has an important message. It's interesting. The structure of the film is interesting too, because the structure is backwards.
Yeah.
So it's a very unconventional movie in that regard. But the scene in particular is just very hard to watch. It takes place in this underground tunnel. She decides to take this tunnel because it's a shortcut. And she encounters this gentleman down there, and he assaults her. And it's just you think it's going to be over, and it's not. And it's just
Yeah.
one of those things where you're just like, please let this fucking end. Because
Yeah.
it's just really disturbing.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing too. The thing about it that might be as equally disturbing is just these are people that are in terms of the characters, they're very corruptible in the sense that once the sexual assault takes place, Vincent Cassel, his character is just on this, they're just out to get the guy that did this.
Yeah.
And by doing so, they turn into monsters.
Yeah.
They are willing to go to those lengths for the sake of revenge, getting revenge. So and yeah, there's a lot of violence. I mean, they beat the shit out of a guy uh with a fire extinguisher, I think, from what I remember.
Damn.
It's pretty brutal. Like it's really brutal. Um but it touches on those themes of the duality and what happens to a person when they're pushed to the limit, after experiencing or after someone that they love, someone close to them has dealt with something incredibly violating and as violent as a very violent sexual assault. So the movie for me is not a movie that I watch too often. As I said before we started recording, I watched it again with my girl months and months back. This is before I got kind of busy, with work on that whole stretch. But I think Vinegar Syndrome actually put it out. It was one of their partner labels that had released it as a Blu-ray
Oh wow.
with a new slipcover. I ended up getting that, so I do own it. But it's not a movie that
You'd
I
watch for
watch
fun.
often.
Yeah.
No, hell no, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
For fun,
yeah.
no, no.
Yeah.
No, dude,
Yeah.
and it's weird, right? Because it's like one of those movies that I think, and even when I bought it from the partner label from Vinegar Syndrome through them, I was like, why am I buying this?
Yeah.
Like, do I need to watch this again?
Right.
But my girlfriend was interested in seeing it, and I was kind of telling her like, there's a lot of movies that I've seen that are pretty disturbing. They're not the type of movies that a lot of people would like,
Yeah.
just
We're
because they're
consuming
just
them for.
not.
Yeah.
They're just not, and that's not to say that they're, as I said before, vacant of good story and character development and messaging,
Yeah.
and subtext, but it's just a matter of how much you're willing to stomach in order to digest the rest of that stuff that's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's just sexual assault. Like I said, it hits home for a lot of people. It's a very tough thing to deal with. Um, in reality, first and foremost, but to also see it depicted on screen in such a graphic, violent way is
Right.
also incredibly unnerving.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it again with her, and not only was she deeply affected by it, but I found myself just as bothered as I was.
The first
I
time.
felt like it was 10, 15 years ago in high school, like same thing.
Yeah.
Like I felt exactly the same about it,
Yeah.
which I guess is a good thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because I was equally as disgusted, and just angered, and that's the funny thing about it because it just makes you feel all these emotions,
Yeah.
um, because of how violent it is. But I mean, I guess that's credit to Gaspar Noé for being able to, I guess we can say, capture that on screen and convey those emotions and really make you feel what these other characters are feeling, just making you feel uh, the anguish that
Yeah.
I think they feel when this happens. But yeah, it's not a movie for everybody, as a lot of these films that we're going to talk about aren't. But Irreversible is my first pick. If you guys are interested in checking it out, it is available to purchase. I believe there are still copies on Vinegar Syndrome's website. I could be wrong though. It's been a while since I checked, and they've had so many partner label releases since this was
So
put
much.
out
Yeah.
that I don't know how many copies are left. I can probably check that out real quick for anybody that's listening or watching this and is interested in checking this out. But I don't yeah, this isn't I don't think this is even available on streaming. So the only way to really check this out would be to try to, nab a copy of it somewhere. But
Yeah.
that's my first pick, Irreversible. Gaspar Noé, Monica Bellucci, Vincent Cassel, both are fantastic in the movie. Very well acted movie. Again, it's just that particular scene, and the events that transpire after that,
Yeah.
um, just really make this movie kind of just a descent into hell,
Yeah.
in that kind of situation. It just
Yeah.
and that's what I think the messaging is. It's, watching this traumatizing event take place to this person, and watching the people that she's with who are good people, um, it just brings out the worst in them,
Yeah.
and that's just horrifying to see, how
Yeah.
quickly one event can alter somebody and
Yeah.
and just bring the worst characteristics of them out. In this case, the violence that people possess, and that's
Yeah.
always a scary thing. So
Yeah. Definitely waters to be careful of treading. And I mean, it's true. One event can alter somebody. So that's definitely a movie I have heard plenty about. I think you and I may have talked about it previously. I've seen it come up over on the Discord server. It's
yeah,
something, not out of like, oh wow, what is this? It's something like I feel like it's a box I need to check off with how many people have recommended it to me, if like for the disturbing content and stuff, as it's just as much a good movie as what I've heard. It just has hard to stomach details. But the way that I'm more or less doing my tier, these aren't going to be all like the absolute most fucked up things that I've seen. There's
Mm.
some wild things that I've seen, but I've picked 3 movies that I would recommend somebody watch at least once. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in a particular order. And these were actually pretty famous, pretty well-known movies. My first one is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. It is a movie extremely. I'm not going to go into too much more detail than just saying it's like it hit really close to home and it hit very personal for me when I watched this for the first time. This movie is like very near and the subject matter is very, very, very hard for me to watch. I've only seen it twice,
Mm.
even though I do consider it to be one of the best movies ever. And that's going to be Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream.
Mm.
And while it's not the most absolute disturbing thing, I think the way that this movie, I believe it's Ellen Burstyn that plays the mom, Jennifer Connelly, Marlon Wayans, and probably what I'd consider outside of comedy, his best role ever, if not his only role outside of comedy that I can think of.
Mm.
And Jared Leto again, and he's great in Dallas Buyers Club, but he's amazing in this movie. It centers around all 4 of those people, and essentially you get introduced to these people as a very, very particular way. Some of them more as like as drug dealers, drug addicts, innocent bystander, and just kind of being involved is how I really categorize their 4 lives at the very beginning of the movie. Some people's lives start to change for the better. Some people's lives start to change for the worse. And then some of them just take fucking squiggly line, red dot turns and everything like that. And I think the way that this movie is shot and the way that it is conveyed is so realistic. It's absolutely unreal. It
Mm.
really, really does show how the, especially with like, and I'm going to go into a little bit more spoiler territory than you kind of did, Will, on this one. The way that the mom just
Yeah.
goes from being a mom you'd want to seeing one commercial, bro. One commercial, and the way that her son treats her, and she's the hardest part to talk about. Like I can even probably end up getting choked up talking about it. It is so hard to watch her spiral, man. Like it is insanely hard to watch how Ellen Burstyn's character, Jared Leto's mom, goes from just wanting her to see her son succeed, letting her son run over her, letting her son take whatever he wants, sell it to the point where the pawn shop owner's getting used to it and just returns the TVs and the items and everything like that, to just starts to abuse things. What I assume, I don't think they necessarily say exactly what it is, but they're amphetamines is what I assume that they are.
Yeah.
And she just becomes a shell of herself, and that is hard to see because I have seen in real life that happen to people, and that's why that movie just absolutely hits so close to home for me. Jared
Mm.
Leto's character, he actually starts to kind of get a little bit better, after a while, and then just falls even harder. And he got what was coming to him. And Jennifer Connelly's character just, again, it's a real life situation. You do what you got to do for money, and people do that to themselves. People do that to their bodies. They put themselves in those situations.
Mm.
That scene I don't want to talk too much about, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I believe it's Michael Clark Duncan that's in that scene.
Yeah. At the end.
Yeah, with all the money and the party and everything like that. But Marlon Wayne's character is probably my favorite. Every time he was on screen, he just absolutely stole the show. I really wish
Mm.
he'd do a lot more stuff like that because he was absolutely brilliant in this movie from beginning to end. And it's really one of the most most cohesive and coherent packages. And it's like I said, there's much more disturbing things out there. I think the way that Aronofsky took the subject matter and didn't make it unrealistic and was like, here's the harsh reality of the shit these people are doing, and here's what
Yeah.
can happen and what does happen and what people genuinely do go through.
Mm.
Um, it's extremely hard to watch. I know there's going to be a time I gotta, by recommending it, someone's going to come over and be like, "What's one of your favorite movies?" There's going to be a time I'm going to show somebody the movie again, so I'm going to have to watch it again. But I remember that movie broke me down in the last 5 minutes. I was holding it in, I was feeling it. The tears were right here, like a river that's like right there at the bank about to overflow. And then as soon as that last 5 minutes hit, I was like, oh, fuck it. It's down, it's over. And then
Yeah.
I showed the movie to somebody, and I rewatched it, and it was just coming down from 10 minutes onwards. Now rewatching that movie, knowing what happens at the end, makes you
Yeah.
feel so much fucking worse for these characters in every
Mm.
which way. It is just so hard to watch. But it's so beautifully done. I can't say that enough. Just absolutely everything about it is just so beautifully and well done. It really is a perfect movie, an 11 out of 10. In that realm, it's hard to find movies that do that well. The score is
Mm.
absolutely unnerving as well,
Mm.
screechy, eerie, while just being so harmonic and beautiful at the same exact time. I can't get enough of I can clearly get enough. I've only seen it twice, but I love talking about the movie because it was an experience for me. For a movie that makes me feel that way is very, 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 very uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can name like okay, there's like one movie that made me cry. It's about a horse. It's called fucking Flicka of all things. I think I was like a fucking like preteen, got a hold of that movie,
Flicka.
and yeah, fucking something happens with the horse, and I was like, oh, and Marley and Me, for some reason made me cry.
Oh, Marley and Me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the movie's fucking sad, but that movie just made me, or Requiem for a Dream made me bawl like an absolute baby.
Mm.
And yeah, and for the advisory content, if you haven't Googled it already, it doesn't necessarily have any type of sexual assault or anything like that. It does have a lot of sexual imagery, and one that at the very end, while it's not assault, it will make you very uncomfortable still, just probably perceiving it and seeing that.
Mm.
A shit ton of drug usage. It deals with the harsh reality of pretty much any and every single drug use out there. So
Mm.
that's going to be my strong recommendation for Requiem for a Dream, and that's going to take my number one spot. But yeah, Requiem for a Dream, one of the best movies I've ever seen, and hits home for me. Can't recommend it enough. And the 4K, if you, for our physical media fans out there, you can get it like religiously for $9 all the damn time. And that
Yeah.
Atmos track is insane. It's a reference quality disc. So I definitely think that's a movie that people should watch, understand the harsh realities of certain subject matters.
Cool.
What's your number two?
Well, so my number two is actually a movie that, again, I found it disturbing at first watch. It's been a little easier to stomach since then, but it is still a movie that recently I have not seen in many years. So,
Yeah.
and it's something that I'm going to try to watch again soon. I was actually curious because, um, I don't know if this has a 4K. I don't believe it does. I know it's had a few Blu-ray releases, but I'm curious to see if this movie ends up getting uh,
Hmm.
a 4K treatment at some point. But that being said, it is a very disturbing movie, uh, and it's about a serial killer, and probably has probably one of the best performances I think I've ever seen
Oh wow.
of anybody playing a serial killer. And that is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
It does have a 4K.
Uh, who released that 4K? I don't want to get off the topic
Yeah,
too
no,
much, but
I
who?
just remember that because I've heard that movie and it was extremely hard to get because it was a UK only LE that Arrow did.
Okay.
It was hard.
Oh,
You can still
that's
get the
why.
standard, but
Arrow.
it's fucking hard to get, bro. Like Lighthouse hard. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard good things about that movie. Can't wait to hear you talk about it.
So Michael Rooker, who he plays Henry, he is a fantastic. He's a great actor, but he kills it in this.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
He kills his role. So this movie is based on. So there's a serial killer, or was a serial killer. I don't know if he's still alive or if he's passed away at this point, but I think he was from the 70s or the 80s, called Henry Lee Lucas. And this movie essentially is based off of his confessions, so to speak.
Oh wow.
He confessed to murdering a bunch of people. I think it was something crazy, like 600 or 700 people he claims to have murdered.
Oh wow.
Which is just fucking insane. That's like one or two people a week. In a span of
When you
like
break it down that way, yeah.
it's
Crazy.
like in a span of like 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So based on what I remember reading, although most of those claims ended up becoming, they were, said to be false because they weren't able to really prove that. And again, with a lot of serial killers, they tell stories. They're storytellers. They're manipulators. A lot of the stuff is either altered or just simply a contradiction of what they've said, in previous interviews or whatnot, right? So, but the movie pretty much, I mean, dude, it's weird because it almost kind of takes like a documentary approach. It pretty much follows Henry around, Michael Rooker's character, the serial killer, and his roommate, and it just follows him around as he just is introduced to these random people that he murders. Um, and there's a whole segment in the movie where it pretty much depicts a killing spree, um, which pretty much that tends to get kicked. From what I remember, it kicks off when Otis he brings like his cousin. I don't know if it's his cousin. Otis is the other character, and I should look up who plays the character of Otis because he's another guy that I'm somewhat familiar with. I think his name's Tom Tolles is the actor that I'm thinking of. He's bald, he's got a mustache or a beard. Tom Tolles. If you look up Tom Tolles, you'll know who I'm talking about. You've probably seen him here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, Tom
and he
Tolles, he played
brings
Otis. Yeah.
Otis is the
Yeah.
guy's name in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of that he's Henry's like sidekick or roommate, right?
Oh,
They're
wow.
traveling around, living together. And again, I don't know if it's his sister or a relative. Like he brings this woman with him who ends up getting involved with what it is that they're doing. But and there becomes this weird dynamic where like even though Henry kills people, he has this weird thing with like violence depicted against women. Like he's not a fan of that.
Hmm.
Um and there's this whole dynamic between Otis and the woman, and I forget her name, it escapes me, but Otis starts like Otis is threatening her, and as a result of that, like Henry starts to view Otis in a negative light because he tends to be or he becomes protective of this woman. So, dude, it's a very interesting dynamic, and it's
Hmm.
a film that, in terms of why it's disturbing, it's disturbing because of the murders. It's disturbing because of
How they go
what he
about it.
does to some of these people and how they go about it.
Yeah.
And again, as with a lot of these movies, very controversial because the camera does not necessarily cut away from the violence.
Wow.
Um, and that's kind of the weird thing. And it's there's this documentary feel to it at points, and that's what makes it more fucked up, I guess. It's like it's almost like you're watching like a snuff movie or a snuff film. It's like you're
Texas
watching
Chainsaw
something that you're
style.
not supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I think is so effective about it. But really, I mean, it really it's a great depiction of the psychology of a serial killer and what goes on in their head. And this is these again, with a lot of serial killers that we've known throughout history. There's always these weird. It's like weird because although they're fucking crazy, they're psychotic. They still have a certain code. There's certain things that they won't do or don't do. There's certain things that trigger them, I guess we could say, for lack of a better word. So it's interesting to kind of see that dynamic play out with Henry and Otis and the woman that he brings. I think she might be his sister. I don't know if she's his sister or his cousin. But it's interesting to see that dynamic play out. But all the while, I mean, they're just running around, just selecting people at random to kill. And again, that's what's fucked up about it, right? And
Yeah.
that kind of ties back to even classic slasher films. I mean, like Halloween. Like one of the things that made Halloween scary when it came out is because of the implication that everything that Michael Myers did was just random.
Yeah.
It just his victims just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they were just incredibly unlucky and unfortunate. So that being said, this movie really feeds off of that, right? And it kind of taps into that uh, whole aspect of how serial killers choose their victims, or I guess how they don't choose their victims, right? Because in this case, most of the people that uh, meet unfortunate fates in this film. Again, it's mostly just random, which makes it even again, I think that's the biggest aspect of why it's so disturbing is that, none of this is necessarily calculated. It's just, you walk into a bar or you walk into a restaurant to eat and you're looking around and you're like, "Oh, that's a nice family over there. I'm going to decide to kill them."
Right.
Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what's so fucked up about it.
Yeah.
So, I would highly recommend Henry though, Portrait of a Serial Killer because if you're willing to stomach some of the kill scenes, it really is a fantastic, incredibly well made movie. Very well shot. It is a portrait of a serial killer. I mean, the title does this movie justice. It is
Yeah.
what the title says it is. And it lives up to that in incredible fashion. And again, this is a movie like Irreversible and like Requiem for a Dream. These movies are movies that when they were released, they were met with criticism. They were met
Yeah.
with mixed reviews. There are a lot of people saying that, if you watch these kind of films, you should question your morality and whether or not you're a good person or not, because, these movies, they riled people up, and for good reason. They do feature content that is disturbing. So Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, that is my second pick, and it is very well, in fact, a movie that features a plethora. Did I say that right? A
Yeah.
plethora.
Plethora or plethora. I've heard it
Plethora.
both ways. Either or.
Plethora. Plethora is like I'm just making up. I'm just making up pronunciations at this point. No, it features a plethora of disturbing kills.
Yeah.
Very hard to watch, depending on your taste. But
Very
yeah,
good pick. Yeah.
yeah,
Very good
and
pick.
guys, if you can find that standard from Arrow that Chase was talking about, I would definitely try to check that out. Otherwise, as far as streaming,
It's on Tubi.
it's on Tubi. Look at that,
No.
Tubi coming through
As
yet
always.
again. So yeah, guys, that might be an easier one to catch. So I would highly recommend checking that out on Tubi. Again, it's not a movie that I own. I do own Reversible. I do not own Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. But if it's something that I saw that was on sale, I might get it. Because I
Yeah.
definitely want to watch it again. As I said, it's been quite a few years since I've seen it, so I think it warrants a rewatch at some point soon. So that's my second pick.
Fantastic pick. I actually haven't seen it. I wanted to check it out when that was coming out from Arrow, and I'm probably gonna end up watching it in the next couple of
Hmm.
days because I've heard absolutely the same thing you said. Michael Rooker, like that's still one of his best roles to this day. Like he just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely kills the role. So solid
Hmm.
pick on that one. And I think you and I can probably agree on this movie. Now this one actually might be now this one. For the warning on this one, it's got more sexual violence
Hmm.
than I would say sexual assault or any type of forced actions or anything like that. It is a
Yeah.
horror movie through and through. I feel like, or at least a psychological thriller at the very least to water it down. But my
Yeah.
second pick is going to be Lars von Trier's Antichrist.
Oh yeah.
That movie still, I can't rewatch it. I mean, it's not because it's bad or because it's that disturbing. It's just like that's a one and done movie. You know what I mean? If it got a 4K,
Yeah.
I'd probably be good. But it's just like the violence in this movie is just absolutely graphic. And I enjoyed every bit of the ride with Willem Dafoe and I have the tab up and I just forgot the Charlotte Gainsbourg. I'm not really too familiar with her outside of here. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
something she's done that
Well,
I know of.
she's been in a lot of Lars von Trier's work, and it's funny. You'll notice if you look up a lot of his other movies, if you look at his filmography,
Yeah, she's
um,
in the house that
Charlotte
Jack built.
Gainsbourg is in a lot of his stuff, and as
Yeah,
is Willem Dafoe. I think Willem Dafoe has worked with him, multiple times now. So,
yeah. Nymphomaniac, I'm pretty sure he was in that one.
yep, you're
Um,
right. Both of them are in
so
that one as well.
yeah, another recommended, non-disturbing, but really cool movie.
Mm, yeah.
Um, but Antichrist really deals with like, and you might need to course correct me because like that movie kind of rattled my brain when it got to like the third act. But as far as
Mm,
I'm understanding, it's a therapist and a Charlotte's character seeking therapy due to trauma that's happened to her, and they go on a retreat. because they are essentially like, hey, you know, this might be good for us. Let's go in the forest. Let's do this. Let's do that. And essentially, the forest starts kind of talking to her, not like the witch, if you've seen the witch, where it's like, you know, you have an entity talking to you, but more or less like she starts changing because of her environment.
Mhm.
And she takes a fucking turn to crazy town, man. Like, she
Yeah.
takes a turn, and it feels natural and organic. Again, this movie is an actual masterpiece. This movie is extremely well made, just as much so as it is uncomfortable. But I would compare this movie to, because I don't want to give away the shock value of it, because that's what was really good about it. I think a good comparison to this movie would be Misery. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, I can see the similarities with that,
Yeah,
for
like the
sure.
serious conversations, they're really good, they're engrossing, but whenever, like in Misery, spoiler warning, 3, 2, 1, when she
Yeah.
smashes his foot in, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
But this takes that and goes it hits a home run with all bases loaded, you know? This one takes it that extra mile, is very graphic with it. It has genital violence is where I'm
Mm.
getting,
Mhm. Yeah.
both in every way that you can imagine. Oh, if you're wondering, oh, well, which one? Every which way you can imagine.
Yeah.
The scene is absolutely beautiful with them on the tree and everything like that. There's not a
Mhm.
whole lot I can talk about this movie without giving away, because I don't want to talk about that scene too much. But
Right.
that scene alone, and I think it's probably about 15 minutes of the runtime, maybe 20
Mm.
minutes pushing it. It has its own chapter because it's set up in prologue, chapter 1 through 5, or 1 through 4, and then epilogue. And
Mm.
it is that movie, I kid you not, cinematography in that movie, the writing in that movie, the acting in that movie, everything about it makes it a masterpiece. It's an actual
Yeah.
masterpiece. It's
Yeah.
super well done. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It's a 10 out of 10 movie.
Wow.
But it's yeah, it really is, because somebody just randomly told me to watch it. They're like, "Hey, watch this disturbing movie." I turned it on and I just boom, you know? And so I don't regret it. There's not a whole lot I can talk about Antichrist. It's kind of known at this point. I think that's probably up there with Requiem for a Dream as being known for its
Yeah.
category of movies. So there's not a whole lot of time I can necessarily spend on that. And that's a movie I'd actually recommend. It's a really great movie to watch, just like Requiem for a Dream. Soul and Soul, beat for beat, they're great movies. As long as you can stomach this one, Requiem for a Dream has hard to stomach imagery. This movie has actually hard to stomach, in lieu of, I haven't seen Henry, but I'd imagine it's along the lines of how Will just described Henry. It doesn't cut away from anything. It
Yeah.
focuses on it even harder when it gets more uncomfortable. So definitely worth a check out. It's another Lars von Trier movie. He's got another one out there that I didn't pick for today, but The House That Jack Built's really good. Um, and that one's a pretty wild movie. But that's gonna be my second pick, and I feel pretty comfortable with that one.
Yeah, man, Antichrist is a movie that I've seen once, and I'm kinda with you, dude. I don't think there's any reason for me to to watch that
Yeah,
movie again.
yeah,
But, I mean, I love Willem Dafoe and, Charlotte Gainsbourg. They seem to have, at least in that film, uh, a lot of chemistry on screen. They just
they do.
they pair very well together.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, dude, I was gonna when you were talking about how crazy she gets, like, that's an understatement, dude. Like,
yeah.
the
She
shit
goes,
that she
yeah,
does in this movie, like, her character, what she does in this movie, dude, it's just ridiculous. Like,
hmm,
when we were talking about that, I was thinking about what she does with, like, the kid, because remember they have, like, the infant son?
yeah,
Um, and, like, later on, it's something about her, like, doing something. It's like she puts his shoes on the wrong feet,
yeah,
like, and that's why the kid has, like, deformed feet, like, it's just fucked up. It's just
yeah.
fucked
It's
up,
it's
dude.
so wild, and it just
You
keeps
know, it's just
going and
gnarly.
going and going. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, Antichrist for sure. Now, that's something that I would recommend. Again, I agree. I think people should check it out if they're curious.
yeah.
It is available on Google Play. I'm pretty sure
Criterion is where I watched it as well.
Criterion has it as
Yeah,
well. So, yeah, check that out, guys, if you're interested. But I mean, other than that, I mean, Lars von Trier is an incredibly talented director, dude. I mean, his films are obviously not for everybody, but he is somebody that has a very distinct vision for what
Hmm.
he wants with his movies. And I mean, yeah, he's made a career out of being a very, I guess we could say, polarizing filmmaker with his work. So
Yeah.
Antichrist is definitely up there in that regard. So
Yeah.
yeah, good pick, dude.
Yeah. That's a
All
really
right.
good one. Very, very easy to stomach to a degree compared to some of these other ones. But yeah,
Yeah. Well,
depending.
compared to these other ones, I'm going to throw one out there that we did mention at the beginning of the recording, but I think we can't really talk about disturbing movies without mentioning this movie. So
Yeah.
I have a pretty decent story to this movie because we actually a bunch of us got together at a friend's house. I'm pretty sure it was like junior or senior year of high school, and we watched this movie at a buddy's house, and the fucking reactions to people
Yeah.
were I mean, Chase, it's one of those moments that you just relive in your mind because you won't be able to replicate it again unless you find a new group of people that are
Another good.
sheltered and haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna pick Martyrs, dude, because Martyrs is a movie that,
Yeah.
again, we talked about it at the beginning of the recording, beginning of the episode, and we talked about it before we rolled. And when you mentioned it, I like a light bulb went on. I was like, holy shit, I forgot all about Martyrs, but I forgot how fucking brutal this movie is, dude.
Yeah.
Um, Martyrs is, uh, it, in my opinion, and there's been other films that have come out since, the genre itself, that it's a part of, is there's plenty of other movies in there, but it's pretty much in that genre of like the French psychological horror or like French extreme horror. I
Yeah.
believe the word or the phrase they use is French extremity.
Yeah. You're right.
The French extremity. And God, I mean, dude, how do I even describe Martyrs?
I've never seen
Um,
it, so sell it to me.
Well, let's put it this way. The poster is one of the coolest posters I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's very ominous. You have the two women that are kind of embracing each other, like one's leaning on the other. They're just both looking up. Um, Pretty much, it just centers around a woman's, I guess we can say, hunger to or her eagerness to seek revenge against people who tormented her, terrified or tortured her as a child. Um, she's on the hunt for these people with a friend who is also a victim of abuse. And dude, they just it's just a downward spiral into fucking hell.
Damn.
Okay.
Okay.
It is one of the most disturbing movies I think I've ever seen. Now, I will say this: there is some fucked up shit that happens in this movie with just things that get attached to people's bodies.
Hmm.
One scene in particular where someone is encased in something and is trying to break it loose, and it is fucking disgusting, depraved, horrifying, like all of those words mixed into one. Okay? You just take all that, you throw it into a fucking blender, and you fucking mix that shit up, and you just fucking down it, dude, because that's
Yeah.
the only way to get through this movie is just to absorb it and just deal with it. But dude, it's incredibly violent. Incredibly violent. There's a lot of themes with this film in regards to religion, faith, and how far one person is willing to go for their faith or something that they are convinced of, or a conviction. Let's put it that way. And there's a lot of themes regarding conviction versus belief, and just I don't know the extremes that people go to for faith, for the faith that they
Hmm.
have. But it's pretty much there's again, a horrifying experience occurs. One that involves abduction and just an extended period of torture.
Oh wow.
And I forget the woman's name in the film, but again, it's a woman and her close friend. The close friend has also experienced a lot of trauma as a child. This takes place, I think, like a decade or so after this experience, when they were young. And the friend is a childhood friend, as I said. They just go on this quest of revenge against the people who, committed these acts against them. And it is just, I'm trying to think of a way to put it, where I don't give
Give it
anything
away.
away.
Yeah. Sometimes that's kind of hard when that's why my Antichrist part was so short, because it's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, honestly, it's like it's hard to like. This is the thing with these movies, because I don't want to give too much away where I'm interfering or influencing your first time experience with it.
I see what you mean.
You know what I
You're
mean?
doing a
Because
really
I
good
don't
job
want to
not
say
giving it away.
I don't want to say too much, because for people listening too that haven't watched this, like this movie fucking hits hard, dude. Like it fucking
Yeah.
smacks you.
Yeah.
Um, it's that's the thing. It's like difficult to find words to really describe what it's like.
Yeah.
Um, you really just have to come to your own conclusions and just take it all in for what it is. Um, I just remember when we watched this with a group of people. This was like junior or senior year. We used to do this thing everybody in October. Everybody would fucking, hey, let's get a bunch of movies this weekend. We'll go to so and so's house this weekend. So and so's parents are going to be out of town. We'll go over there. We'll watch a bunch of fucking R-rated movies. And
Yeah.
I remember, dude, I rented Martyrs,
Yeah.
and we brought it over, and my girlfriend at the time, like, was like, yeah, let's watch this. Will brought this movie. Let's watch this. Dude, I fucking like the people in that room were questioning what the fuck was wrong with me, okay? Because they were like, dude, what is this? Like, what
Yeah.
are we watching?
Yeah.
Because at the time, and I'm pretty sure this movie came out in like 2008 or something like that. So when
Yeah.
you and I, well, the three of us, Gabe, uh, Chase, and myself, we've talked about kind of like our generation growing up with the horror that we had in terms of what movies were out in theaters, like the Saw movies and
Yeah.
Scream, in terms of the mainstream stuff. And going to school with people, and being in high school at that time in our lives, at least for me, you know, the kids at school, everybody saw the same movies. Like, people were aware of Scream. They might not have. Certain people weren't as into it as other people were, and everybody had their own movies that they liked. But when you bring like a movie like this to a get together
To get together.
amongst friends, like if I would have brought fucking Scream or
Yeah.
Halloween, people would be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we've seen this, or I've seen this on TV or whatever." Like, dude, Martyrs is not that movie. Like, this is the thing with these movies. Like, you're really exposing people to some fucking extreme shit.
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
just just I mean, I would consider this. I mean, it's alternative. It's definitely not mainstream, or at least it wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is a movie that people watch and they're just like, "What the fuck am I watching? Like, what is this? This is horrifying. This is torture."
Yeah.
Um, but Martyrs is that movie. Um, it's almost like, dude, there's enough horror, and okay, let's put it this way, and I'll sell it to you like this. There's enough gore in this movie. If you're somebody that likes blood and gore, there's massive amounts of that. You will be satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
But it also doesn't feel like like the gore isn't there for the sake of having it in there.
Right. It makes sense why it's there.
hmm And the thing that I think you're gonna love the most is the last act. Okay,
Oh, really?
the third act in this movie is just one of the most fucked up things I have ever seen. Okay,
Damn. Damn. That's saying a lot because we've both seen some
like
pretty crazy stuff.
I've seen some pretty
Disturbing?
crazy
Yeah, you
stuff, but
know?
dude, and this is why, like, that's why when you said Martyrs, I was like, holy shit, I forgot all about Martyrs.
Yeah.
I did. No, I did, man. And
Yeah.
I mean, dude, this movie received an X rating in France.
Damn.
Okay.
And
So
I'm assuming it's out as an X rating, like the copies you can probably get a hold of. Like it's not cut and chopped and screwed with, right?
yeah.
Damn. So you get everything that you're talking about. Like you didn't have like an uncut variant or something like that.
No, no,
Yeah.
and but I mean, I will say, dude, like the physical violence that's displayed in this movie is just absolutely fucking it's
Just
just
up
like
there. Okay.
pulverizing, dude.
Yeah.
Pulverizing. So I would highly recommend you check this out. For those of you that are listening or watching this, I think Martyrs is going to be my top pick because I think even to this day, there's not really any other movie quite like it.
Yeah.
And Chase, when you watch this, I would love to get your thoughts on it, whether you want
Yeah.
to text me or whatever. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video because this is one of those things. It's like you haven't seen some of these movies, and I'm really interested to hear your
I'll
take
go
on
down that
them.
rabbit hole. I got that
Yeah,
vacation coming up soon, so I plan
but
on catching up a lot.
you gotta watch Martyrs. I mean, even if you
Yeah.
can't get to Irreversible, that's fine. I mean, I can live without you watching Irreversible, but you
But you
need to
can't
watch
without Martyrs.
Martyrs.
Okay, I
You
will.
need to watch Martyrs, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and interesting. The director,
He did Ghostland. I was looking that up while
yeah,
you were talking.
yeah, Pascal. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I don't want to do it because I don't want to butcher it. I'm pretty sure this is on Tubi as well. So try
It
to
is.
check it out on Tubi if you guys can, if you're interested. But I will say, like, dude, this is, I mean, it's French extreme horror. Like this stuff is, it's pretty much the most disturbing, violent stuff you're gonna see in a movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, Martyrs is like the top of the cream of the crop for me as far as the films that I've seen. And there's some others I think. I don't know if we want to name some honorable mentions if we have time. I think we
Yeah,
do.
go for it.
So I don't know if you want to, if you have any that you're thinking of off the
Well, see,
bat.
the thing is that's why, like, you probably, for video people, you probably see my face going like this. I need to start writing down my top threes. I don't know if I'm just getting old, but I keep forgetting, like, the last top three Gabe and I did, I completely forgot my third one. And it just
Mm,
happened to me again. And it was actually
hmm.
pretty unknown. And I don't think you've even seen it, but it just popped in my head. And I was like, I do have that movie.
Mm,
The only ones, and there might be one, it's not really disturbing, but I might be like bringing people back because it was actually pretty popular and pretty well received. But I
mm.
think it has some pretty disturbing context and some pretty uncomfortable context, but Raw, I think needs a little bit of tip of the hat. I think that's got
Okay.
like, the bullying, the cause and effect, the reaction, everything. I think it's a very
Yeah.
well done movie that does have some actually disturbing content. I don't think it's that disturbing.
Mm,
When Evil Lurks, I think because of the scale of violence, I think needs a
yeah.
nod. I don't think it would break a top 10 most disturbing movies of all time, but I think that one on my list would get a nod because it's got child violence in it. Anytime something gets child violence in it, you go to the top. You're disturbing, because that
That's
doesn't
like
happen
bonus
often.
points. It's like fuck, they went there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, so When Evil Lurks, but I want to give a nod to Gummo. Gummo is an experimental film.
Yeah.
It's not really disturbing as much as I think people sometimes will get weird and disturbing confused in how it's shot and everything. It's not
Mm,
like the most disturbing thing I've seen. It's just like it's really, really weird. It's
yeah.
really, really well made though. I believe it was from 1997. I
Hmm.
watched it not too long ago. But yeah, Gummo was very, very interesting. And I mean, you can't make a disturbing movie list without mentioning Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like that's probably the most well-known, disturbing, controversial movie ever. I genuinely thought the first time I ever saw that movie that it was real.
Hmm.
It's shot like the beach scene in Cannibal Holocaust is absolutely insane how real that looks. What they're doing to that lady, that is absolutely unreal. And yeah, what other honorable mentions would you have, Will?
I mean, I was gonna just mention, if people want to kind of get into this kind of, I mean, like the French extreme or French extremity genre, there's other movies that are out there. Now, not all these movies have been well received. One of them that came out more recently, in fact, Second Sight just put this out, was High Tension,
I was just
which
thinking that.
for the most part, High Tension is actually a solid movie up until the ending. The
I've
ending completely
heard that.
fucking
Yeah, shits the bed. It's
ruins
like the
that
number
fucking
one
movie.
shits the bed ending of all time is what I've
But
heard.
but but up until the ending, it is a fantastic movie. So I
Yeah.
would say High Tension, I don't wanna say it's similar to Martyrs in the degree of violence, but it's similar in vein, I guess we can say. So
Yeah.
I'd say High Tension. There's another movie from around that time period, I think it's called Inside,
Yep.
if I'm
2007.
not
I was seeing that
mistaken.
on this list. Yeah.
Yep. So Inside is another one. That's later on in the decade that was released. In fact, it was probably either a year before or a year after Martyrs, from what I remember. Like a lot of these movies came out around the same time.
Yeah.
But Inside is another one of those movies. And just a fun fact here, I'm looking at like an IMDb poll. And let's see here. There were 460 votes cast.
Hmm.
And it's funny because it says it's a Face Off French gore films of the 2000s. Okay, the top three movies are Martyrs, High Tension, and Inside.
Interesting.
And Martyrs overwhelmingly,
Overwhelmingly.
overwhelmingly
Interesting.
got the winning vote, got the winning amount of votes. So I don't know if that even means anything. Probably not, because IMDb. I mean, who gives a shit? But
Yeah.
um, I think you should definitely check out Martyrs. High Tension's another one if you're willing to overlook that ending. Like I said, most of that movie's pretty good. Inside is a pretty cool flick too.
Yeah.
Inside is pretty cool, and I think that was that was co-directed. There was a team of directors that made that film, and that from what I remember with Inside, there's a woman that's like grieving the death of her husband. Um, and she's I think she either just had her child or she's about to have her child. And she's being just tortured in her home by this weird woman who like wants to take her child from her. It's
Hmm.
fucking it's
Which
brutal.
one is that one?
That's Inside.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw that on the list for the first time. I've never seen or heard of that movie.
Yeah. I would check that one out. That one
Yeah.
is another one that's pretty controversial. Another one that I hear people talk about all the time, and I've seen bits and pieces of this movie over the years, is a movie from around the same time period called Frontiers.
Hmm.
So I would check
What
out
year?
Frontiers. Probably the same year, around the same time as Martyrs. Like I said, a lot of these movies came out around the same
2007.
time.
Oh, I see.
So Frontiers, I remember it's I don't know if it's a gang or if it's just a bunch of kids. They're younger people. They pretty much they run away from home. There's like some I don't know if it's an uprising or something like that that's going on, but there's some kind of political event that takes place, and what ensues is like there's this whole kind of breakdown of society to a degree, and these young people they pretty much they escape and they run into the countryside, and they end up staying at this place, or they end up just taking refuge in this place that's run by these like this weird family of neo-Nazis.
Hmm.
Um and they just torture them, and it's horrifying. So
Interesting. I'll
check
have to
out
check that one out.
Frontiers. That's another one of my recommendations.
Hell yeah.
for a runner-up, I would say.
Hell yeah. What other ones you got? Or you think that about summarizes it up?
I got one more, and this is a movie that I actually own, and it's one that, again, another partner release by Vinegar Syndrome, or one of Vinegar Syndrome's partner labels. It's a movie called Calvaire, I believe it's pronounced. Again, from that same time period, mid to late 2000s. It's about this guy who, I forget if he's a musician or whatever he is. I don't exactly remember, but he's on his way home for like the holidays, and his vehicle breaks down in the middle of nowhere, and he pretty much he runs into some fucking creepy people. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Pretty
What
good
about
movie.
Old Boy?
Old Boy is very disturbing. Old Boy is more fucked up than disturbing, though.
Fair enough.
Like fucked up meaning like, oh shit, I feel horrible for this guy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, Old Boy is more depressing than disturbing, in
That's
my
how I feel
opinion.
about Death Wish.
Yeah.
It has a disturbing scene, but it's more fucked up. Like, can my boy Charles Bronson just get a fucking break? You got 5 movies of the same shit happening to you at the beginning of every movie, you know?
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's how I feel about it. I was going to bring up Death Wish, but that one's more just fucked up than disturbing. It has a disturbing scene that's only about a few minutes long.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are solid recommendations. I actually found I might even link this into the description at the bottom of the video, but I found it says the ultimate beginner's guide to disturbing movies, and it's 300 movies on
Oh, wow.
Letterboxd. And it's got a
That's
lot
great.
of what you were saying I was finding on this list. I was just scrolling and looking. It's got Henry on there. It's got Irreversible, Solo, which disturbing content. I think that movie is just like way over talked about in regards to disturbing. It's a really good movie
Mm.
that's about really horrible shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a really well made movie. Some people talk about it, like just talk shit about the movie as if it's just like some weird movie that got made. No, it's actually a pretty solidly well made movie that deals with some really hard to stomach stuff. But yeah, I'll link this in there. It's got Eden Lake, Mom and Dad,
Eden
Hostel
Lake,
is on
that's
here.
another one I forgot about. Another good one.
Yeah, Eden Lake. One I saw way back. This one is Come and See from 1985.
Okay.
That one's really good. And there was one other one on here I wanted to throw out there. Why am I escaping it? Oh, Be My Cat, a film for Anne. It's a weird movie. It's from 2005. It's just super fucking weird. That's all I really want to say about it. If you're curious about weird, just check it out.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Any other summarizing thoughts? You want to close this out, Will?
Well, summarizing thoughts. Yeah, I mean, those are some of our picks for most disturbing movies. I mean, maybe this will be a part 2.
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of do a follow up to this. I mean, I'm really interested because I've seen some of these movies. Some of them I've seen. Some of them you haven't seen. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about Martyrs now that it's on my mind, because I'm
I'll watch it
surprised we
Tuesday.
haven't spoken about some of these movies earlier
Yeah.
in our relationship with one another.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see or hear what you have to say. So I'll look forward to that. But guys, if you guys have seen any of these movies, let us know what your thoughts are. If you agree, if you disagree, if there is anything that we didn't mention. I mean, obviously, for the sake of time, we couldn't get to everything. There's plenty of other movies out there that you would consider disturbing. But I think for the most part, when most people think of disturbing movies, and this is why a lot of these lists tend to feature a lot of these same films, that these French extreme horror films tend to top a lot of people's lists. I think because that genre is known for, again, the graphic content, the excessive amounts of blood and gore and just graphic violence. I mean, it's just become a subgenre that's kind of, I guess we could say, just known for that, right? It's kind of synonymous with that. So you tend to see those movies on a lot of these lists, it seems like. But I mean, they're all mostly solid movies, depending on how you depending on what you're into. Like I said, none of them are enjoyable to watch for the sake of the story, unless you're into the blood and gore, right? So
Mhm.
with a lot of these movies, if you're a gore hound, if you like blood, you're going to be satisfied. Believe me. But if you're looking for a little more than that, if you're actually looking to feel like emotionally invested and then just kind of, if you want to get an emotional gut punch, okay,
Yeah.
then I think most of these movies will do that to you at some point during the view time. But yeah, that's really where I stand. I think we should maybe revisit this down the line. Maybe we do a part two. But
Yeah.
I think what we should do is I'm definitely going to rewatch some of these now. Now I'm kind
I
of
was gonna say
excited to rewatch a lot of these movies and find out
revisit.
whether or not they still hold up like they used
Yeah.
to. Because I told you I forgot about Martyrs, but I remember it vividly. Once that
Yeah.
memory once that memory got triggered, man, it's there. Eden
Yeah.
Lake is another good one. I don't know if I mentioned that. I think you did, but Eden
Yeah.
Lake I would highly recommend as well. That's another good one. Um, Funny Games.
From
I don't know if you guys
1987.
have seen Funny Games.
Yeah. I have
Um,
that up to go check out right here because I saw it on that list.
yeah,
I haven't seen it.
and there's a remake of that as well, I believe, which got relatively solid reviews. I haven't seen the remake, I don't believe.
2007.
But yeah, 2007 or 2008, sometime around there. But yeah, Funny Games, check that one out. That's another recommendation. But I was gonna say, guys, yeah, comment down below. Let us know what you think about these picks. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you guys would consider one of the most disturbing movies you've ever seen? So let us know. We always appreciate the comments, we appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate you guys checking out our videos and supporting the channel as always.
Always.
So keep doing what you do, and we'll keep doing what we do, and trying to give you guys, hopefully some good content you can listen to on your ride to work or while you're at work or whatever it is that you're doing with your day. So thanks again for watching, guys. Don't remember to like and subscribe, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Remember to do that. Did I say
Remember,
don't remember to
you
like and
did.
subscribe?
That's why I was about to start cracking up.
Dude,
He said, "Don't
I'm
remember."
telling you, man.
Refrain from doing that.
Don't like and don't subscribe. Don't subscribe to anything. Okay.
Nothing.
Don't do anything. Don't
Delete
even,
that.
you know what? Delete the app and don't watch any more YouTube because it rots your brain. That's what's going on with me. That's why I
Yeah.
can't form sentences properly because I watch too much of this shit. All right, guys, that's it.
Thank you, everybody.